Good morning, everyone. I'm Councillor Roy MacDonald. I'll be chairing the Development Committee today. For anyone who hasn't attended one of these meetings before, the officers who provide and present our reports and offer technical advice sit either side of me at the top table. In front of me in the central area sit the members of the committee who will be making decisions on items on the agenda. Can officers please introduce themselves from the left?
Good morning, my name is Jeff Lyon. I'm the Development Manager.
Mark Burns, Planning Officer. I'll be presenting the EGME application.
Lauren Gregory, Democratic Services Officer.
Good morning, Russell Stock, Development Management Team Leader, and I'll be presenting the DILM item.
Darrell Watson, Development Management Team Leader. I'll be presenting the West Beckham item. Thank you.
Fiona Croxton, Solicitor to the Council.
And finally, Russell Williams, Assistant Director for Planning at the Council.
Thank you. Before we start the formal business, I'd like to draw your attention to some short notices. The fire alarm, we're not expecting a drill today, so if the alarm does sound, please follow officers using the marked exits at either side and make your way to the car park in front of the building or the flagpole at the rear. Please do not use the lift. Can you please switch your mobile phones off or turn to silent? And if required, we'll take a short break about 11 a.m. I'd like to take the opportunity to remind members of the public that they should not speak to councillors during the meeting or at the coffee break. And the toilets are out there in the foyer. Thank you. To receive apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Paul Heinrich. And if I may, Chairman, the next item, Councillor Callum Ringer is present as a substitute for Councillor Heinrich.
Thank you. The minutes, to approve and correct the minutes of the meeting committee held on the 20th of July 2023. Does anybody have any issues with those minutes? I've had taken with one. Councillor Vickers.
Just a technical correction on page 2 under members' debate and questions, point 1. I'm sure Councillor Adams is brimful of compassion, but I think that should be compassion, should be comparisons.
Thank you very much.
At the risk of being accused of aiming for an award as a pedant, on page 6, clause Roman 12, final line, I believe my English teacher would have said that should be a plural apostrophe, not a singular apostrophe for residents.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
I'll sign them. Thank you. Items of urgent business.
None have been received.
Thank you. Order of business to consider any request to defer the determination of application included in this agenda so as to save unnecessary wait. Members of the public to determine order of business for the meeting. Yeah, it's going to be as is, I think, isn't it? Any declarations of interest? Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 9, Dillon PF 211478. I've met with Mr. Patterson as a board member and have given no opinion of the planning application, purely just met him as a courtesy. I will be voting.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor Ringer.
Similar to that, for the West Beckham application, I've met with people who've objected to the application and also representatives from Broadland, also given no indication of support or otherwise on that.
Thank you. Item 8, officers' reports. Egmere. RV 231241, variation of condition for operational life and decommission period of the planning permission PF 1398, construction of 20 MW solar photovoltaic farm with associated works, including inverter housing, and to add an additional 13 years on the current planning consent until the 24th of October 2052 at the solar farm Bunkers Hill, Wells Road, Egmere, Norfolk.
Thank you. Just to update members, since the publication of the agenda, the MPPF has been updated, but just for clarity, that only relates to onshore wind development. So the amendment does not materially alter the assessment made in the officer's report. Yeah, so this is the application site. So this is the site location plan. Next slide. So this is a close-up aerial. So this view shows the solar array in situ. And I'll say to the east is a B1105 connecting Fakenham with Wells. So you might have driven out along this. Next slide. Yeah, so this plan shows the landscaping. So a lot of it is largely taken. So the site is relatively well screened from the wider landscape. There's sort of limited public viewpoints towards it, with predominantly agricultural tracts in the immediate vicinity. So that's well screened from the wider landscape. Next slide. So this is the view from the northeast. So you've got existing sort of industrial agricultural buildings on the on the left side, and obviously you've got the woodland belt and sort of the view towards the solar panels. Next slide. This is another viewpoint from the north. So this is from the footpath. So I'd say you can see the woodland belt and sort of the hedging. So that's well screened from the public viewpoints along the footpath. This is a view from Creek Road. So looking southeast towards the site. I'll say there are sort of tracks in between this road and the site, but I'll say these are agricultural tracks rather than public roads or public rights of way. So there's sort of hedgerows and the intervening fields between public viewpoints. Thank you. I'll say this is a view from Walsingham Road. So you've got a sort of hedgerow sort of largely screening it from the south aspect too. And this is a view eastwards from the B1105 towards the southeast corner. So you can sort of see the tops of them from this sort of limited viewpoint. So as noted, the proposal is to extend the life of the solar farm as considered acceptable in local plan and the National Planning Policy Framework, which supports sort of renewable energy development. So the recommendation is to approve subject to conditions recommended in the officer's report. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody like to ask any questions?
Chairman, just to confirm, we have no town and parish representations supporting or objecting speakers. And the local member is not present today.
Councillor Toy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just kick this off. I see the reasons for calling here is it exceeds the 0.5 hectare threshold, which I think we've discussed in this committee that's too low really with what's going on nowadays, that threshold should be higher. So I'd be happy to propose it as laid out. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, just want to say thank you for this report. It's rather good. Yeah, fully support this. This is very important that we back this initiative. Obviously, we as a council have our net zero targets for country hazards by 2050. So we need to do everything we can to ensure that we're tackling climate change and getting on with our targets. And this very much will help produce green energy. So I'm more than happy to second this. Thank you.
So it's proposed and seconded. Does anybody else have anything to say? Well, yeah. Councillor Holiday.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the report, Officer Brands. Three questions. The hedgerows all looked fairly well grown. Are they trimmed at all? Because the photographs were all taken in the summer, so they was doing a good job screening. But do they get cut back in the winter? Question number one. Why 13 years? Is there a particular reason for 13 years? And my third question is, what's the output compared to say a turbine, a wind turbine of a solar array like this? Any idea in terms of output of energy? Thank you.
I say regarding, obviously there'll be more intervisibility possibly in the winter time when it's not in leaf, but obviously the landscape visual appraisal does out of this will just be limited viewpoints anyway. So there is sort of a maintenance plan with the original 2013, so that's still in force. So I think I can't remember exactly how the hedgerows are maintained off the top of my head, but obviously they are sort of quite high to screen the development. I don't know why the 13 years was picked. Obviously they sort of consider that 13 years they've got that amount of life left in them to extend it to that period. So I'm not. It doesn't sort of specify why the 13 years was chosen in the supporting information. The output wise, I don't know I don't know the comparisons with wind turbines as such, and obviously all solar arrays will be different sizes. So this is over 80,000, so this will be quite a large generation, whereas I don't know how many wind turbines that would take to do the equivalent power. So I don't know.
It's almost a bit of a chalk and cheese comparison in many ways, because it depends on the wind at that particular site, and it depends on other circumstances. So it's hard to do a direct comparison to say, actually, we had a wind turbine here, it produced X amount of energy, whereas solar farm would produce Y. I mean, I think the hard yards were done back when the application was originally approved. So the layout was provided so that it had minimal impact on the landscape. So in terms of your concerns about landscaping, yes, as Mark said, there is an approved landscape management and maintenance plan. So as long as they're adhering to that, then as a planning authority, we wouldn't be taking any enforcement action against that. So as long as they're carrying on with that, which is what we would propose as part of the conditions, then that's fine. Yeah, hopefully that sort of answers the question.
Would all the electricity wires and things like that, would they go if the solar array went? Because there was quite a lot of pylons marching across the countryside. Not pylons, but telegraph poles.
I don't know. I think that's part of the national infrastructure, so that's not sort of. I don't know that's directly related to that.
Yeah, I mean the overhead wires, I think that's an 11 kV network that's already in situ. So that's what they were connecting into. That's partly why they chose the site, because there was infrastructure to connect the grid, to connect the facility into the grid. So anything that's there beforehand wouldn't necessarily be lost at the end of the life, but all the sort of panels would be taken away at the end of its operational life. I think that's what the conditions require as well, that we repeat that requirement.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I too want to say thank you to Officer Brands for a very, very thorough and comprehensive report. I mean, obviously, this extension is to, prior approvals in terms of this issue sort of being settled. So it's slightly surprising that the Campaign for Protection of Rural England is sort of objecting to this. It's only an extension of the period, as it were. There's no overall enlargement of the operation. We've got the usual safeguards in the conditions very well set out by the officer, that if it becomes redundant, then all the apparatus will be removed. We've got that safeguard without compromising the landscape, in which will continue to be in situ if that were to occur. We've even got a 10-year period in which trees are replaced if they become diseased or unsuitable. We've got limits on transformer noise, which is good to see. Ecological protection conditions. We've even got consideration of distance from local properties and dark skies protection, which is particularly important from an ecological point of view. And unless I'm much mistaken, perhaps the birth of a new industry in condition 11, even a provision for cleaning signage on the site, which I have often seen this committee. So congratulations to the officer for picking up on that. That's an impressive detail, Mr. Chairman. And if Councillor Toy hadn't proposed it and Councillor Varley seconded it, I would have done that myself. So I'm very happy to support this application, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. We vote on it? You want to vote?
Okay, so this is for the vote in favour of the officer's recommendation. Councillor Beatty,
Four.
Councillor Brown,
Four.
Councillor Fisher,
Four.
Councillor Fitch Tillett, Councillor Hankins, Councillor Holiday, Councillor MacDonald,
4,
Councillor Mancini Boyle,
Four.
Councillor Neville,
Four.
Councillor Ringer,
4,
Councillor John Toy,
4,
Councillor Kim Toy,
4,
Councillor Varley, and Councillor Vickers.
4.
That is unanimous, 14 votes for.
So we move on to item 9, which is Dillham PF 211478, conversion of agricultural building with associated external alterations to an indoor swimming pool for private hire at the Agricultural Barns Oak Farm, Dillham, Norfolk.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, the application is as described, situated on the edge of Dillham. The applications before you today at the request of Councillor Dixon, and Jeff will read out a statement from him shortly. And also the applicant is a district councillor. So the application is recommended for approval. Some of the key issues that have come from the application relate to highways. That the roads serving the site is acknowledged to be not ideal. It's a sort of narrow country lane. However, highways have considered the application and have raised no objections, subject to a number of conditions sort of regarding how it's used. The road does have some existing passing places, and there would have been movements associated with the use of the building in agricultural terms. So that sort of contributed to their sort of no objection. One of the main sort of considerations that's taken time to resolve is in terms of how the backwash water from the swimming pool and the hot tub would be managed and make sure that doesn't enter the protected sites nearby. So that's now been resolved, and that would be stored separately in a tank and taken off-site to be treated. So yeah, it's similar to the previous case. The NPPF has been updated, so the reference just amended there. Again, there's no material sort of implications for this development. So yeah, the recommendation is for approval, subject to a number of conditions, starting on page 44. And Jeff will read out the statement shortly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's we open the meeting for the agent to speak, is that?
Yes, so just to confirm, Chairman, we have no town and parish speaker for this item. There is no objecting speaker, but we do have one supporting speaker, the agent.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bootman. If you just start when you're ready, please go. 3 minutes. Yeah, you got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. So as we've heard, this application seeks consent for the conversion of a historic barn to provide a swimming pool available for private bookings. The detailed report prepared by our officers confirms the application is acceptable in principle and would have no unacceptable impacts in respect of landscape, highways, amenity or ecology. Concern has been raised by the local ward member, though not by the relevant technical consultees, that the proposal would result in environmental harm, lies in an unsustainable location and raises concern in respect of highway safety. So I'll focus on those issues. Environmental harm. The application is supported by a detailed ecological assessment and has been subject
of consultation with both Natural England, the Council's own ecologist and the Environment Agency, none of whom have objected to the proposal. The application will deliver new bird and bat boxes, and in addition, all works will be subject to the relevant Natural England licence. To address concerns regarding potential harm to Broadfen SSSI, the proposal includes installation of a sealed tank to capture all water from the pool cleaning process. This tank will ensure it's not possible for wastewater from this process to enter the local water system. With regards to sustainability of the location, the first point to note in this regard is that both local and national planning policy recognise the inherent sustainability of reusing existing buildings, such as the barn subject of this application. The second matter to note is that the proposed pool is not of a size or designed to attract people from far afield. Rather, it is a small pool offering facility to local residents and guests staying at the farm's camping, glamping and other holiday accommodation sites. Over recent years, and in line with government advice following changes to the agricultural payment system, the farm has invested significantly in diversification schemes focusing on tourism. This application primarily seeks to provide a service to guests at the farm, as well as providing a valuable facility to local residents. The pool building is approximately 2 kilometres from a popular campsite, 300 metres from the glamping pods on the farm, and 1.3 kilometres from the village. Access from each of these locations is either via local lanes, well suited to walking and cycling, or the network of paths and byways which run across the farm. In this context, the site is considered to be well suited and sustainably located for the proposed use. Finally, in respect of highway safety, the road network serving the site already accommodates traffic from the farm, several dwellings and the farm's tourism businesses. There's no recorded history of incidents along Oak Road, which leads to the site, and the highways improvements already undertaken by the applicant have proved effective. Para 111 of the NPPF states that development should only be prevented or refused on highways grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety or if the residual cumulative impacts would be severe. In this case, Norfolk Highways do not consider that the proposal is either unsafe or that the cumulative impacts would be severe. Given this, it is not clear what justification there could be for refusal on grounds of highways. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bookman. Thank you. Officer Lyons.
Okay, so I'm just about to read out the response from Councillor Nigel Dixon. He says he gives his apologies for being unable to attend the meeting today as local ward member. He says that while I recognise the need for appropriate regeneration of redundant agricultural assets and the potential contribution it makes to the local economy, I'm also very aware of the potential harm it can cause to the local environment and infrastructure, in this case, the local road network. He says his concern reflects that expressed by residents in very rural and remote locations about the incremental use intensification of repurposed agricultural sites and buildings, access from a local road network never designed for such degree of growth in traffic. Moreover, he says public confidence that their concerns aren't properly weighed by the planning authorities often stops them from formally expressing their concerns. Of course, individually, applications such as this don't cause severe harm, but when taken together, adjacent or related development collectively can reach a severe level of harm. In this case, Highways' judgment is that severe harm will not be caused. Whether that's true or not won't be known until development is in place, and then it's too late to prevent the harm continuing. The harm in this case arises in the form of reduced road safety caused by excess speed and traffic volume from road narrowness, restricted vision on sharp bends, lack of footways and poor junction alignment on both the access routes on the A149 and that via Honing. That balance of judgment is for you as representatives of such rural communities to decide. That's from Nigel Dixon, Councillor Nigel Dixon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anybody in? Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm also the ward member, as a sort of a double-edged sword, really. This application, it would appear to me, the officer has actually addressed one of my main concerns, which was the safe discharge of water. That's now been addressed, which is great. The other problem seems to be the amount of traffic on this rural road. If you look at page 43 in the last paragraph, Highways have actually recommended an operational management plan with a booking system. This to me would, and also I believe we should actually have a traffic management scheme added onto it so we can control the amount of traffic going to the swimming pool, which to me, it doesn't seem to be an awful lot of traffic anyway. It seems to be local traffic. But that's something I think would be a good idea to add a condition. I don't know what the officer feels about that.
Yeah, I can come back on that. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, condition 11 sets out the operational management plan, and there's a requirement in there for details of a booking system to be provided and measures to be implemented to manage vehicular traffic movements. I think we feel that that's comfortably covers those requirements.
Yeah, I think that's essential, really, just to mitigate this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher and then Councillor Brown. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did attend an event in an adjacent field last weekend, which was the Canal Trust. No, don't get the wrong idea. And there were hundreds of cars and possibly a couple of thousand people. I was surprised how far it was to the event, but the roads were quite adequate and they were passing places every 50, 100 yards. So I was quite put at ease by the traffic management for that event. And I would be surprised if there were the numbers going to the swimming pool that attended that.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, another good report from Officer Stock. Thank you very much for that. I know there's very little objection from highways, from parish council or from residents locally to this, although it is designated in the countryside under policies SS1 and SS2. Policy EC1 supports repurposing of farm buildings and diversification if the scheme supports agricultural enterprise, which it clearly does. There are other facilities for tourism on site, and as regards Councillor Dixon's concern about sustainability, policy EC7 does actually assume a rural location in its provisions. I know that the size of the swimming pool is under 50% of the permitted square meterage dimensions allowed under policy. But following on from what Officer Russell Stock said about water disposal, it's going to be contained, disposed of monthly. It will go to the Stalham Sewage Works, which I had the pleasure of visiting last year with Councillor Dixon to see how that worked. I've just got a bit of a query about the protection license, the EPSM license on page 42. What is the, can I just ask the officer, what is the process for that? And if that process fails or isn't met in any way, what are the consequences for the applicant should this be approved? So I know the environmental protection team are satisfied in respect of its environmental effects. That dark skies concerns are addressed in conditions 3 and 6, very well set out on pages 45 and 46, which is very important. And the operational management plan referred to in respect of traffic should take care of most of the highways concerns for this scheme. So I would recommend approval. I'm quite happy to propose approval. But if the officer could just comment on the license, please.
Let's get on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so the license is a Natural England license relating to sort of the works which could impact on the protected species. So condition 4 of the recommendation before you covers the events. If that license is not granted by Natural England, then the works cannot be commenced. So that does cover that. I think the expectation is that the license would be granted. You know, our ecologist has considered it, and it's normally a standard procedure. But if in the event, for whatever reason, it doesn't, then we have got some surety there, and we can then consider it further.
Councillor, are you happy
Yeah,
with that
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm happy with that, and I will reaffirm my
proposal?
proposal for
Thank you.
approval. Thank you.
Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Chair. Is the glass going to be smart glass? Because it does says in condition 3, the manufacturer's specifications are going to be checked by you, but there's an awful lot of glazing there compared to the original building, and I would be concerned about light pollution. If not, and also I would be concerned, what happens if the tank fails? What mitigation would be in place then? Thank you.
So yeah, my understanding is the glass isn't proposed to be smart glass. The details are required for a sort of heritage design reason, due to the sort of the historical architectural interest of the building. And in terms of the tank failing, the condition, I think it was condition 11, or was it? It was one of the conditions, I can't remember which one, would cover the events. So if it's not operating in accordance with the manufacturer's specification and the required standards, then we would be able to take action there. Condition 8.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you and good morning, everybody. My concern is slightly different. It's for water safety. Will the pool be lifeguarded?
I don't think that's a question I can answer. I don't think that falls within the planning remit. If there's a requirement under other legislation for it to be lifeguarded, then that would be for the applicant to comply with. But yeah, I don't have those details, sorry.
Does that come under probably our environmental department? I think was water safety possibly comes under them. I'm thinking about previous ones where there've been difficulties, particularly at Woodlands.
Yeah, it's likely to come under Environmental Health Department as a separate regime.
As long as that is covered, that's fine.
Thank you. So we got a proposal. Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, just having a rural ward and understanding the issues for farmers and diversification. And yes, I think that officers have worked hard, and thank you for the report, to make sure that we get the right balance here. So I'd be happy to second it. Thank you.
Thank
you. So this is a recorded vote for the officer's recommendation. Councillor Beattie?
For.
Councillor Brown?
For.
Councillor Fisher?
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett?
For.
Councillor Hankins? Councillor Holiday? Yes. Councillor MacDonald?
For.
Councillor Mancini Boyle?
For.
Councillor Neverway?
For.
Councillor Ringer?
For.
Councillor John Toy?
For.
Councillor Kim Toy? For. Councillor Varley? And Councillor Vickers? For. That is 13 votes for, 1 against. The vote is carried.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your report. So, and next we got West Beckham.
Waiting for the officer to arrive.
Oh, okay. Just a second. Yeah, so we have a couple of minutes adjournment till the officer arrives, if that's okay. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Now we're on item 10, which is West Beckham PF 231065, erection of 5 dwellings, affordable homes with associated access, parking and landscaping at land to the north of the Church Road, West Beckham.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, firstly, there are 2 updates to the report. A representation has been received after the report was written. I understand this has been sent to all members, but in case anyone hasn't received it, the main representation is an objection on the grounds that the proposed development does not comply with policy HO3 of the core strategy, as there will be 2 affordable housing sites within 1 kilometre of each other. Also, amended plans have been received incorporating minor amendments relating to design and landscaping suggested by officers. These include burnt red roof tiles being proposed across all plots, and additional segmental arches and string courses added to provide interest to the appearance of the dwellings. A hedge has also been incorporated behind the meadow to provide a soft enclosure whilst retaining the transitional qualities of the meadow. A plan has been provided to show EV charging points and the location of the proposed air source heat pumps. As such, the recommendation has been changed to remove item 1 under the subheading subject to. The relevant slides in the presentation have also been updated accordingly, so what will be displayed differs very slightly to what was sent out with the agenda. Okay. So turning to the presentation, this shows the site location of Church Road at the sort of southern end of West Beckham. The application is for 5 affordable dwellings as an exception housing scheme. It comprises 1 2-bed dwelling, 3 3-bed dwellings and 1 4-bed dwelling with associated gardens, parking area, landscaping and bin storage. The proposal also includes an area of meadow and open green space where pedestrian access will be provided through the eastern boundary between the open space and the existing play area. There'll be a new vehicle access to Church Road to serve the development. A total of 11 car parking spaces will be provided across the site to accord with the current adopted parking standards. This first slide shows the site location. The play area is that I referred to is here, which would be linked through to the development by an opening in the boundary hedge. This shows the aerial view. The site is currently greenfield land. It's the land out edged in red. Church Road runs to the south of it. This is the proposed site plan. This is the updated version. It shows the proposed layout of the site with the detached dwelling is plot 1 and 2 pairs of semi-detached dwellings set to the rear of the site approximately 45 metres back from the road to reflect the existing pattern of development to the north of Church Road. The new access to Church Road is down here. The area of meadow and green space located at the front of the development along Church Road will allow views of the church, which sits to the south here, and to the south of the site to be retained. The open space will link to the existing play area through an opening in the hedge as indicated here. That's the proposed open space. That's the existing play area adjacent to the existing dwellings. Private gardens are provided to the rear of the dwellings, screened by 1.8 metre high timber fencing between the properties. New hedgerow to the north and west is proposed, with a replacement hedge on the southern boundary. The existing one would need to be removed to provide the necessary highway visibility displays. These next few slides show the proposed elevations and floor plans. These are the amended plans that have been received. The very changes of mind as compared to what is in the presentation that has been sent out. In terms of the materials, the scheme proposes a mix of facing bricks, flintwork and timber cladding, including traditional detailing to give character to the individual dwellings. The form, scale, appearance of the dwellings and palette of external materials is again sort of traditional in terms of brickwork, tiles, etc. So this is unit 1, the proposed elevations. There's the proposed floor plans. Units 2 and 3. floor plans for those units. Units 4 and 5 elevations, and there are the floor plans. These next few slides show the site from looking from various directions. This is the existing play area. The site's the other side of that hedge, and then an opening for pedestrian opening will be formed within that. That's looking at the site along Church Street. The site sits in there. Again, looking west, looking east along Church Street. Again, the site is there. This is looking at view north adjacent to the church. This is a view east from the field access indicated by the red arrow. This is similar, looking northeast from that same access. So turning to the main issues, with regard to whether the proposed development is acceptable in principle, officers consider it accords with core strategy policy SS2, which allows for affordable housing within the countryside in principle, and policy HO3, which sets out the criteria which must be met for such a proposal to be acceptable. The proposal would help to meet a proven local housing need as confirmed by the Council Strategic Housing Team. Sorry. It's being a scheme of 5 dwellings. It complies in as much as it's located adjacent to an existing group of 10 or more dwellings. There are no other affordable schemes permitted under policy HO3 within 1 kilometre of the site. The affordable housing provided will be made available to people in local housing need at an affordable cost for the life of the property. This will be secured by a Section 106 obligation. With regards to highway safety, the Highway Authority have no objection on highway safety grounds. With regard to layout, scale, design and housing mix, as we've referred to, the layout of the development and scale and appearance of the dwellings is considered to be acceptable. The mix of dwellings is acceptable in policy terms and supported by the Strategic Housing Officer. There will be no harmful effect on neighbouring dwellings with regard to overlooking, overshadowing, loss of light, noise, etc. With regard to landscape, the Landscape Officer has no objections and considered in the most part that the proposed landscaping will aid in assimilating the development into its landscape setting. Having regard to the layout, retention of existing hedgerows and provision of a new hedgerow and open space like meadow provision is obviously welcomed. Whilst conservation design have no objection, it was felt there'd be some minor harm to the setting of the church, which in this case is a non-designated heritage asset. The proposed development would still maintain a separation distance of approximately 45 metres and the proposed runs have been set back within the site and include a green buffer by way of open space and meadow to provide an increased feeling of openness within the street scene and to improve the relationship between the church and the new dwellings. Because of this, albeit minor harm, paragraph 203 of the NPPF is engaged, and as such in determining the application, this harm needs to be weighed against the public benefits which would accrue from this development. In this case, the provision of affordable housing serving the local community is given great weight and is considered that this public benefit outweighs the harm identified to this non-designated heritage asset. With regards to trees and ecology, the Landscape Officer has no objections on ecology grounds or works in relation to trees and hedgerows subject to relevant conditions being attached. Flooding and drainage, the development would connect to the main public surface drainage, which eventually discharges out of the area affected by the nutrient neutrality advice we received from Natural England in March last year, and SUDs would be used to manage surface water drainage. With regards to the recreational impacts of the development on designated sites, a mitigation contribution in accordance with the GI RAMS strategy would be secured as part of the Section 106 agreement in this case. Other matters, solar panels are detailed on the plan and will have the potential to be used. The agents have stated that other measures are proposed to reduce the environmental impact, such as the installation of air source heat pumps, and these have been shown on amended plans received yesterday. The dwellings are designed to a high standard of thermal efficiency with fabric and energy performance meeting the minimum standard of the relevant part of the building regulations with a fabric first approach taken. As I've mentioned previously, the plan show an EV charging point at each group of parking areas and air source heat pumps. The recommendation then is to approve the application as set out on page 60 and 61, but subject to items 2 and 3 now that suitable amended plans have been received. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for your report. I think we've got our supporting speaker now, Ed Mumford Smith. If you could take the microphone that way. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Good morning. Thank you. I'd just like to thank the planning department for their swift resolution of this application. As the officer alluded to, Strategic Housing approached Portland Housing Association to develop a scheme of 10 dwellings in this parish. As we got to know the village, we realised that a scheme of 10 dwellings together would be too many for the scale of the community. So we came forward with 2 sites, one of 6 on Sheringham Road and one of 4 on Church Road. Following a consultation with the local community and engagement with the landscape and conservation teams, we've amended that to 5 on this site, which we feel can be accommodated without impacting on the heritage setting of the church. We did engage with the parish council, who raised concerns of foul drainage. There's a pumping chamber and a rising main crossing the site. Further engagement with Anglia Water found that there was an error, an issue which Anglia Water did address, but the Environment Agency is unable to let us put on the site foul drainage, as we had suggested we might be able to do to the parish council. You may recall last time I presented to committee in Hingingham, Anglia Water kindly attended and highlighted that most of the flooding in high rainfall events is due to the illegal connection of rainwater systems to the foul drainage system. A new development has a negligible impact on additional flows. This site was submitted to Homes England as part of a package of 6 sites for funding, which has been successful, allowing us to deliver a fully affordable rented scheme. As the officer mentioned, it'll be designed to low operational carbon, but also low embodied carbon to reduce whole life cycle carbon. I'm grateful of the committee can approve the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Wenger,
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. The reason that I've called this application in to the planning committee in the first instance is because there has been some significant public interest in this application. For context, it is because there is a second application coming up from Broadland within a kilometre elsewhere in the parish, where I think there is perhaps slightly more interest than this one. And I think the first thing to acknowledge is that the majority of the objections for this particular application come from the vicinity of the other application, rather than neighbours in the direct vicinity of this one. The parish council, whilst remaining neutral, have, I can quote as saying, we'll hope this will help revitalise the village. That's certainly my hope too. The site itself is ideally located by the playing field, by the church and by the Wheatsheaf Public House, an establishment which has a strong record of employing local people. The population of West Beckham has actually decreased by 10% between the last census and the most recently released data. This in part, I'm sure, is down to a proliferation of second homes and holiday lets, but also an elderly demographic and a high number of retirees, leading to a low occupancy rate. Very few homes in West Beckham sell for under £400,000, a price tag that the vast majority of local people on local wages would find, out of reach, particularly given the high interest rates on mortgages at the moment. There are a high number of families with a direct local connection to West Beckham and surrounding villages waiting for appropriate housing. These are families who know Beckham, they know its limitations, but they know its potential, and they deserve the opportunity to remain in their community and not be priced out. On the specifics of the site, I'm pleased to see that they will be built to a high environmental standard, including air source heat pumps, bird and bat bricks, and a meadow. There is no guarantee the homes will have solar panels, and this is something that I would like to encourage from the applicant. I am sceptical about the need for a garage on one of the properties, and I know that's a hangover from when these some of the homes were intended to be an open market sale. Thankfully, that's not an open market sale, but I do wonder whether this would be perhaps better suited to a granny annex style addition, which might allow multi-generational living or an accessible downstairs bedroom. And I don't know whether the local housing waiting list has anybody on that for which that might be beneficial. The site to the new play area is welcome, and Broadland have indicated they'd be able to put a bench on the open ground, and I don't know if that can be something we can require by planning condition. And also a low fence around the grass area at the front and the meadow to protect from vehicle encroachment. And I'd like assurances that they would be included. Highways have indicated that the site gives limited opportunity for modal shift away from private car, but I'm pleased that Broadland have indicated that they would be prepared to provide covered cycle parking at the shared Bodham and Beckham Village Hall, which allow our residents to cycle there and allow them to catch the very regular bus service from that area. I think my biggest disappointment that it is only 5 homes, and I think that actually it probably could cope with 10 there. I think it's the ideal place for it, given that it is close to the village amenities. Ultimately, this application gives local people, younger people, the opportunity to remain in or close to their communities against a backdrop of high house prices in a competitive market and expensive mortgages, making the chances of purchasing a home very, very limited. More than that, though, it'll help sustain the community of West Beckham, one which is now struggling to keep its church open, one which used to hold a myriad of community events and now does not. That is not a stagnation that we should be protecting, rather it is something that we should be protecting West Beckham from. And I believe this rural exception site demonstrates significant potential benefits to the community of West Beckham and the surrounding parishes and should be looked upon favourably. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ringer. No, first that.
Mr. Chairman, I'm confused. The recommendation is for approval. However, this is subject to securing the obligations of S106. It goes on to say further that a 106 agreement has to be completed within 4 months, and that this is unreasonable, is virtually impossible within this comment. Can you explain why?
The time given to complete the section 106 is reasonable, as I'm sure Fiona will agree. And I think the reason that it's worded in that way is to encourage sort of timely completion of the obligation, so the application doesn't remain undetermined for months, which has happened with with other application, not saying for affordable housing schemes, but in general, if it's not completed in a timely fashion, it's sort of held on the books, and in some circumstances there can be changes in policy which would require the application to come back to committee potentially. That's just a general comment of why we've put that in the recommendation. Thanks.
So okay, Councillor Hankin, does that answer you?
No. Look, given the fact that there is a desperate requirement for affordable homes in this area, and the fact that I understand from the councillor concerned that there is a shortage of land, this would appear to be an excellent opportunity to help forge some of that gap, and that quite honestly that every effort would be made to bring the 106 thing within a reasonable timescale.
Thank you.
What do you think is reasonable? I mean, we can extend the time period if you like, 7 months. I'm confident we probably be able to do it in 4, but would you like that too?
Well, in a document it says 4 months.
We can.
I think we may be worrying about something that probably isn't going to be a problem here, because we put as Officer Watson said, we put that on there just so that if things do get delayed or look like they're not going to progress, we need to bring that back to committee for reconsideration. Now that's a backstop. We don't expect that to be happening in this case. We've got the applicant in a room who's keen to get building this site. We've got the local council has got affordable housing as a priority. So I don't foresee an issue that the 106 will be delayed in getting this. If members of the committee were to approve this application, I can be fairly confident that we'll get this section 106 agreement progressed relatively quickly. And the applicant's in the room nodding his head saying that he wants to do the same. So we just put that in there as a backstop. We don't expect to use it. And it is at the discretion of the assistant director. So if actually negotiations are progressing, it's not an automatic referral back after 4 months. There may be that we're nearly there. We don't need to bring it back to committee. It's going to be signed in the next few weeks. So hopefully that allays the concerns. It's
Councillor Brown and then Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I think when it says 4 months, it's a bit like the last posting date before Christmas. It's a moving feast. It's not, a time is of the essence, and a guillotine suddenly drops at the end of the 4th month, I think is probably the comfort that Councillor Hankins is probably after. I think we have a sort of an existential problem with this application, if I'm absolutely honest, in relation to policy HO3, which I'm looking at now in front of me. And the 3rd bullet point says, for schemes of 10 dwellings or fewer, the site adjoins an existing group of 10 or more dwellings and is not situated within a 1 kilometre radius of any other scheme. Now, it's my understanding that phase 2 of this 10 dwelling proposal from the applicant is due to come on stream and possibly to committee next month. I hope I'm not creating any problems for our officers when I say that. I don't intend to do. So it's a fairly factual point, isn't it? And I will refer to it by the Sheringham Road application by name, the second phase, is it within 1 kilometre of this site or isn't it? Can we just establish that very clearly for the avoidance of any doubt? And then I'd want to make a few other points when we've dealt with that point, please.
Okay. My understanding, it is within the kilometre of the other site. Now, that particular element of the policy isn't relevant for the determination of this application, because this is the first application and there are no other schemes within a kilometre. So almost that issue is an issue for the second application that comes in. It's because that's the one that's before you now. Now, even if, don't want to sort of prejudge consideration on the second application, but even if that did come in and you felt that it was within a kilometre, or it was within a kilometre, it's in your gift as decision maker to apportion weight to that element of the policy. If you have evidence of need in that area, then there's nothing to stop a committee making a decision contrary to that element of the policy. The policy it's a development plan, but if there are material considerations that indicate a different decision, and actually housing need and having evidence of local need is a pretty clear material consideration in my professional view. But that's a matter for the committee deciding that second application in terms of how you weigh that.
Well, we can use that argument, I think, on pretty much every rural exception site that comes before us. And they are required because they probably account for about up to 30% of our housing delivery numbers over any plan period. So they are important. I've taken on board the enthusiasm by the housing strategy team for the need for 10 dwellings in West Beckham. But what I'm concerned here about is the perception in the public that we have in some way facilitated an easy avoidance of policy HO3 by separating these two applications. I'm not going to mince my words. I really am concerned about it. Now, so I want to ask the representative from the applicant who's in the room exactly why it is considered that 10 dwellings in this location. So instead of splitting the site between the numbers between two different sites, both within a kilometre of one another, which doesn't comply with HO3 on the face of it, is something which has been brought to committee in two parts in this way, and not promoted as a whole scheme. We've heard from the local member, and I also know the area because it abounds my particular ward, so it's an area that's familiar to me. I'm not convinced that this site will not take 10, that it can only take 5. And why 5? It seems to be convenient that it's related to the 5 on the other site for obvious reasons. And I think that this issue really needs to be dealt with. I really do. We can't rely on 38.6 in every case and material considerations outweighing the harm just because it's a rural exception site. I'm sorry.
Mr. Mumford Smith, could you come up and answer these questions possibly? Thank you very much.
So my understanding of this policy is to prevent the accumulation of large amounts of affordable housing in one location in small villages. That's my understanding of the policy. So my understanding of that interpretation is splitting the need into 2 sites actually improves upon it rather than contravenes that intention. It'll be interesting to know the distance by road rather than as the crow flies, because they are quite distant. And a precedent was set quite soon after the policy came in at Bodham, where actually we built 26 affordable housings next to each other. This site also adjoins some existing affordable homes, not all of which have been purchased. So I felt quite strongly that we should not be putting all the affordable housing next to the existing council housing on the edge of the village. We felt it was more appropriate to split it into 2 more sympathetically designed schemes.
Sorry, Mr. Mumford Smith, sorry, there was another question from Councillor Ringer about the garage buildings. Can you?
Yes, I did meet with the local member actually, and I don't know if the officer was able to put the plan back up because I could talk through that. The site plan and plot 1. So starting with the site plan, actually a revised plan has just gone in yesterday to continue the, sorry, on the, yeah, okay, so that one, yeah, so the garage and bedroom 4 as it's shown has now been converted into an annex as you recommended. So that garage is now gone. And if we go back to the site plan, thank you. There's now additional parking space because you need 4 parking spaces, 3 parking spaces for a 4-bedroom property. An amended plan actually was submitted. It's quite late yesterday, I'm afraid, which continued the hedge around the open space to the east to stop cars parking on it. And to the west, we had further conversations with the conservation and landscape officers because they wanted to keep the view open from the west. So we're proposing some posts along the western boundary, and the hedge continues around the north of the meadow again to prevent. So there's no opportunity for people to park cars on either side.
Thank you. I think we're going to go back to the officer to go through the plans again because the plans he showed were the earlier plans. Making it easy for me. we have to adjourn for a few minutes till he gets the plans. Sorry, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. Where did we leave off at? I think the officer's going to go through the plan again. Thank you.
Sorry about the technical problem, Chair. It was I hadn't the plans only came in very late yesterday afternoon, and I hadn't changed the plan for Unit 1, which it wasn't sort of in the covering email, and it wasn't what the case officer sort of advised me we were expecting. So I hadn't updated that one, and I think for some reason the previous presentation was put up, but now we have got the correct one. We can just go back to the site. Yeah. This is the amended proposed site plan. The changes compared to what was shown on the one in the presentation earlier and on the pack that sent previously is additional hedgerow around here. Within each of these, you can't really see them here, but within each of these groups of parking areas, there's an EV charging point. And this parking area wasn't shown on the previous site plan. The access through to link the play area to the proposed open space is confirmed there. There is a separate plan with air source heat pumps on, with locations on, with lots of additional detail, but I haven't put that one in the presentation. So going to Unit 1, which is the one which proposed a garage previously, which would be in this part of the house here. This is now an additional bedroom 4. So outwardly, the appearance of the dwelling doesn't change that much. Instead of a garage door, now you've got windows. So that is the change that our colleague from the Broadland Housing was talking about. So thanks, Chair. Do you want me to run through the rest of it, or the rest of it? Yeah. Okay. So just run through show you the other elevations. The very minor changes. For example, on the previous one, there was a version. There was a window there. Again, just very minor changes to add segmental arches to amongst other things, to units 4 and 5. So, but the main change is the replacement of the garage with that additional bedroom on Unit 1. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right. So first of all, were you happy with that, Councillor Ringer, about the garage?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that is an improvement to the scheme, and to see as well the additional hedging to make sure that there's no vehicle encroachment on the open spaces. I notice that from these revised plans, it does look as though there are solar panels on the roofs. Is that something that has been added, or is that for artistic effect? Are those guaranteed to be on those buildings?
They were shown to be on the previous plans as well. So, yeah.
There wasn't assurance, or was there? I understand it was only they would be suitable for them. There wasn't assurance that they would be on there.
Yeah.
I'd like an assurance that they would.
It says the notes have been given is that they have the potential to be installed and used. So, but you want
Okay, so those plans that give an indication that they are there don't necessarily mean they will be.
If we wanted to secure them, we would need to add a condition, I think, in my opinion.
That would be possible to add a condition to do that.
Nodding their head at them.
Yes, yeah. So it was nodding his head. Yeah. Councillor Brown, would you want to come back?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. I have reflected on what has been said by the developer's agent here. I do think that the design of these schemes would support a 10-dwelling development on this particular site. But I am minded to support the officer's recommendation today, but strictly on the understanding that there's no predetermination or predisposition disposition to this second site that's coming forward. So I don't want my approval of this today to indicate that it would be a similar support for the next scheme, if I can put it that way.
Thank you, councillor Brown. Councillor Holiday was next.
Thank you very much. I was concerned about the misapplication of the policy, actually. I mean, does the community, if there going to be 10 houses and the next application gets turned down because we've already got an exception site in place and the community loses the 5 houses, the next 5 houses, would they rather have the 10 houses on this one site, or would they rather just only have 5 houses? I mean, it's a lovely layout. I like the way it's opposite. It's near a heritage asset. It's beautifully laid out, but you might lose 5 houses by the way that this is being presented. And what does the community think about that?
I attended, prior to being a councillor, the public meeting that was held in Godalming Beckham Village Hall on this, and one of the things that was raised is that by some residents, was that they would be more inclined to support the proposal on Church Road with 10 homes as opposed to splitting them. Obviously, one thing I will say is that the Sheringham Road is an application that hasn't come before you yet. And it's very difficult to judge, but I think my understanding, of word on the ground is that the community would look more favourably upon 10 homes in one site than they would 5 homes split across 2. I can't speak on behalf of everybody on that, but that's certainly the feeling I get.
Thank you. So it's councillor Toy and then councillor Mancini Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, beyond all the sort of debate about what's going on here, I just wanted to congratulate Broadland Housing, Mr. Mumford Smith, on their engagement, the way they go to the communities, the way they develop designs that fit the location. They're award winning, and I think they do great work. So irrespective of the debate, I think, I'm comfortable that they will work with us to achieve the best outcome we can for local residents as well. So going back to the application before us today, and considering how we've been told that it's this application that's with us today, and I do like the layout, I'm concerned that if we did try to get 10 on that space, if it's not extendable in terms of land area, how cramped that would be. I like to see homes, and as Councillor Holiday said, with the heritage assets. So I'd be happy to second.
I agree, 100%.
Thank you.
Sorry, councillor Mancini Boyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is great to see affordable housing. However, everyone will know one of my gripes is buildings these days literally up to the spec of building design, etc. I'd like to see, I know it probably won't happen, but I would like to see some builders, developers looking more towards passive housing, because with the cost of gas, electricity, etc., passive housing would make it more affordable for people to live in these houses. So I know it's more expensive. I know it's not really what people would like, but I do think that's the way we should be looking forward, instead of just sort of sitting on our hands and building the same old houses. I do think that that's something we should be considering more. I don't know if would like to comment on that, or even Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Varley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would just like to echo my comments, echo the comments of Councillor Toy in regards of the fantastic scheme brought by Broadland Housing. It is a very good application, and I want to thank the officer for the report and the presentation this morning. Having affordable housing is fundamental. It ensures that communities can continue to thrive. We have a housing crisis at the moment. So this application will ensure that, the community can stay together. There's provision now for this. There's some really good eco credentials within this application. I mean, we've got the simplistic notions of the screening mitigations for hedges and the wild meadow. That's going to be great for enhancing biodiversity within the actual buildings. We've got air source
heat pumps. We've also got the provision for EV charging points, which is fantastic. I think we really need to now be having these, within major planning applications and have these as conditions. I do think we need to have a condition of the solar panels as well. I think that would be fundamental, and I really support that point. And yeah, more than happy to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm currently enjoying a similar construction in the parish of North Reps. And we were taken around on a site visit about a month ago, I think. And I can assure you, Mr. Mancini Boyle, that Broadland Housing are doing the best that they possibly can in respect of passive housing. They've been experimenting on my site, and it's taken them quite a while to get it right, but it really is quite an exciting prospect. So don't worry, they'll be as passive as they possibly can be.
Thank you. Councillor Beck.
Yeah. Can I just add my voice of support to this application, because it provides vital affordable housing for local families, and I'm concerned about anything that might jeopardise it going forward. So I share Councillor Hankins' concern about the tight 4-month turnaround for Section 106 compliance, and looking forward to the application, the Sheringham Road application, not wishing to anticipate it, but I do hope that homage will be paid to common sense when applying planning rules. And just a second point, for more for benefit of members of the public that are watching, Mr. Mumford Smith, I think, said the properties were for affordable rent rather than purchase. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Officer.
Yeah, can I just reiterate slightly what Councillor Brown said earlier, the point on the Section 106 agreement and the wording at the end of the recommendation effectively would say that it could be refused if no progress is made after 4 months, but it puts the onus on me to take a view as to whether progress is likely to be made that reaches a successful conclusion reasonably shortly thereafter. So assuming, from my perspective, it hasn't got the Section 106 completed in 4 months, and everybody seems very confident it would. If it is going in the right direction and work is ongoing and it's going to be concluded in the next week or two, then we wouldn't be refusing this application just because it's gone past the 4 months. We would allow discretion for Broadland to complete it with us. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Ranger.
Thank you. I just wanted to come back on a comment that Councillor Toy made. I think it was about the whether if there were to be 10 homes on that site, I wouldn't expect them to all be on the exact. An earlier iteration of the plans that I saw actually had this development at the other end of the field, basically of 100 metres or so to the west, which wouldn't materially change, I don't think, the application in terms of its layout, but it would probably open it up to have more. But ultimately, I think the key thing is let's get these 5. Let's get these approved today, and allow Broadland to get to work on it.
Councillor Hankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to propose my thanks to Mr. Williams for that clarification. I think that's quite important, and add my total support for this particular application.
Thank you. So have we got a proposer and a seconder for that? Yeah.
So I've got John Toy proposing, and I just need to confirm who the seconder was.
I'm more than happy to second this. Thank you.
So this goes to the vote in favour of the officer's recommendation. Councillor Beattie,
Very much in favour.
Councillor Brown,
For.
Councillor Fisher,
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett, for Councillor Hankins, Councillor Holiday, Councillor Roy McDonald,
Definitely for.
Councillor Mancini Boyle,
For.
Councillor Neverway,
For.
Councillor Ringer,
For.
Councillor John Toy,
For.
Councillor Kim Toy, for Councillor Varley, and Councillor Vickers. For. That is unanimous, 14 votes for.
Thank you very much. So item number 11 is development management performance update.
Right, thank you, Chair. So page 63 of your agenda has set out the development management performance. It's a double header this month because we didn't have an item meeting in August. So I've set out the performance for July on page 63 and August on page 64. Pleased to say there are lots of green things moving in the right direction. So in terms of overall performance, we sort of continuing to determine the vast majority of major and non-major applications within time or within an agreed extension of time. And as overall, our appeal performance is pretty good as well. So there's been a couple of more recent appeal cases that have been allowed. But other than that, yeah, the performance is pretty good, as hopefully as you can see on the agenda. So happy to take any comments on performance. Do you, Chair?
Councillor Brown.
Just thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, just to say, these are very impressive figures, Jeff, and thank you for presenting them to us today. I go so far as to say that some of our neighbouring local planning authorities can only look on with total envy at these figures. So it's really good and a good reflection on the performance of our planning department to see these figures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, can I just add in that yesterday at Overview and Scrutiny Committee, the council considered a paper on progress of the Planning Service Improvement Plan, and that also contained similar data, but also set it in the context of authorities across East Anglia and showed that North Norfolk District Council, in terms of both appeals and determination of applications, is in a very strong place. The other bit I promised yesterday in public hearing, so I will just repeat it now, is we're looking to develop within that improvement plan a broader suite of performance indicators covering the planning system, which we will bring to this committee in due course, and not particularly for debate now, but if any of you have any views as to what it would be useful for us to monitor in addition to the ones here today, if you could let potentially Councillor Brown or Mr. Lyon or me know at some point, we'll take account of those as we develop a suite to talk to you about at a later date. Thank you.
Any questions on?
I'll just echo comments from Councillor Brown.
Thank you. So we'll just note that.
Yeah, I'll certainly pass on the thanks from the committee to the team, because they're the ones who are doing the hard work here. Thank you.
The appeals section. You as well.
Well, we've also got section 106 obligations. So you'll see on pages 67 and 68 of your agenda, the list of current section 106 obligations that are outstanding. There's one item there which you can see in red. I don't know if there's any there that Fiona wanted to pick up on in particular, otherwise it's just there for members' attention to see what we've currently got on the books and what's progressing.
No, I'm confident that about 4 will come off the list next month. Unfortunately, it's not the land at Woodland Brands covert, but there we go.
Thank you. So the number 12, the appeals section. Oh, sorry, Councillor Brown, sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I was frantically trying to attract your attention. Yeah, I understand the Browns cover in Western Road, if I get my teeth in, is is I think held up by a building regulation approval issue rather than anything in planning terms, strictly speaking. And I think there's light at the end of the tunnel, and that may be resolved by the end of the month, I'm led to believe. I don't know if you've heard any
Yeah,
more.
we're waiting also for the okay on the biodiversity plan, the woodland management plan. We haven't had anything back yet on that formally. I haven't heard. And probably just would like the fire service to, after that email in March, which committee we're not aware of, I do honestly think from a legal perspective, we do need the fire service to give another email on it just to protect you as members.
Yeah, this one, Mr. Chairman, I hope it won't, as to use the parlance, give the referee a decision to make in terms of it having extended its target time to be settled, because it was an application from memory that we dealt with back in, I think, January, and probably had a 4-month or something like that limit that has so perplexed Councillor Hankins on the last application. So yeah, I just hope that the referee isn't given that decision to make.
Yes, so we move on to number 12.
Okay.
Section.
Yeah, so agenda item 12, page 69, we've got the list of new appeals and decisions that we have on subsequent pages. So just for information, we do have an informal hearing taking place here at the council offices on Tuesday next week for a scheme at Blakeney, which is the penultimate item on page 69. So that's a scheme for a single dwelling. So that's going to be heard next week. And we have had a couple, if you go to page 73, we have had a couple of appeal decisions come in. One was allowed and one was dismissed. Although I don't know if you wanted to make any comments on the allowed appeal, because it's not quite as it seems when you read.
No, I did ask the Chief Enforcement Officer about this because I did look at the enforcement notice before it went out, and apparently the only appeal was on the timescale to comply with the notice, and the appellant got a longer timescale for compliance allowed. So in fact, they are going to tidy up the site in accordance with the enforcement notice.
We call it Pyrrhic victory, I think, isn't it? But just one update on page 72. So we've got the application or the appeal at Walsingham, which was referenced PF 213302. We actually have now received the appeal decision on that one, so that one has been dismissed. So I'm sure we can go into that one a bit more detail. I think it was refused on or dismissed on concerns about impact on conservation area and other things. So the inspector wasn't convinced that that he could allow that appeal. So another one that sort of keeps our record going of winning most of our appeals.
And indeed confirms, Jeff, that there's no favouritism of former members of this council in their applications, so that when we refused it and it was referred for appeal, just so that people are aware.
Councillor Toy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff, are you able to tell us why we went from written representations on the one on page 69 to an informal hearing? I just understanding the process as to why they changed that. Thank you.
So this is the Blakeney appeal we've got next Tuesday. Well, I mean, the appellant had asked for an informal hearing originally. We put representation to say we didn't think it needed to be and could be dealt with by written representations. I think the appellant applied suitable pressure on the planning inspectorate to reconsider their decision, and they did do that, and they've come down on the formal hearing side.
That's fine. I just want to understand the process. So
yeah, I mean, you can make representations to PINs, and they can decide to ignore your representation if they want to, and make whatever decision they feel fit, because they are the decision maker, and they have to agree or decide the process that they feel is appropriate. So
okay, yeah, I wondered whether it was just the inspector decided that he needed to know more or whatever, but this clearly the difference of opinion of how it should be dealt with, and that's what he's fallen on. So that's fine. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Anybody else got any? Okay, so we're on 13, exclusion of press and public. Have you got anything? No. No. I think I've been told to ask everybody to stay behind. for-
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for everybody being gentle with me on my first time. Fairly, apart from